Gruber.
Welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber. Today is Wednesday, April the 24th. Let's get to the day's top stories. Thank you for being here as always. The host of Root Reaction and America's Top 10, Wayne Allen Root, joining me with his thoughts on the Columbia protests, now Harvard in the last little while. Wayne attended Columbia at the same time as Barack Obama, and he is Jewish, so he has some unique perspectives on all of this. We'll get to that in a moment. Also, we need to keep hammering down on election integrity because this next presidential election is incredibly important for the future of our nation. In some states, it's pretty easy for illegals to vote if they so choose, and that could swing the election outcome, of course. You know that. And then later, House Speaker Mike Johnson is set to hold a press conference at Columbia University. When he does, we'll take you to that live. That should be entertaining for everyone involved. Don't miss any of that. All right, so welcome to the summer of hate, because it's coming, and it will dwarf the riots in the streets of America back in 2020. That was just a test run compared to what is coming. And it begins by creating clear lines of division. And this time, they claim it's because of the ongoing war in Gaza. That, of course, is a red herring, but it's what they are using to ramp up the anger and soon the violence in the streets of this country. The rise of hatred against Jews across America is shocking, to say the least. And it's something that most of us never thought we would see, not in our lifetimes. It is a vein of racism that is so repugnant that many of its purveyors deny the German extermination of 6 million Jews, as we know, the Holocaust. They deny it ever took place. This despite the orders from then General Dwight David Eisenhower to document the horrors of Dachau, Birkenwald, Auschwitz, all of them. He forced German citizens to walk past the mass graves of emaciated bodies piled like so much cordwood. He made them look at the horror that had been inflicted upon the Jewish population by the German warlords and others like gypsies who were all killed in the name of ethnic purity. Eisenhower demanded these things happen so that the genocide and the atrocities would never be forgotten. He ordered journalists and photographers into the camps to write all about it and document all of it completely for the world so that the world would never forget. But the world has forgotten. And now, once again, Jewish people are in fear for their lives and their safety, but this is not happening in some far-off land. No, it's happening right here in Joe Biden's America. And he cannot even condemn what is happening. It's truly sad. Instead of pointing out how misguided the mobs are and how dangerous they are on the campus of Columbia, Yale, NYU, Michigan, now Harvard, Biden gives a half-hearted condemnation of the turbulent mobs and in the same breath condemns what Israel is doing to destroy Hamas in the Gaza Strip. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, 2,200 Americans died. We retaliated by killing 3.5 million of them. 9/11 cost 2,997 people their lives here in the United States, and we killed 500,000 people in Iraq and Afghanistan. Funny how nobody seemed to care much about that, and why not? Well, when you run through the numbers like that, it seems there can only be one answer. The mainstream media seems to be waking up to the monster they have created on the left and how out of touch they really are. And one of those networks went over the same facts, the same figures, appearing confused about this ignorance that has permeated America's colleges and universities. On MSNBC, they're advertising just how awful the protests are on these college campuses now. And that is about hating Jews. Period. Listen to what they say.
2,200 American servicemen killed at Pearl Harbor. We go on to kill 3.5 million Japanese, including 100,000 in one night. 2,800 Americans in 9/11. We go on to kill 400,000 people in Afghanistan and Iraq. We weren't accused of genocide. You had, if Mexico had elected a jihadist cartel to run their country, and then they incurred into Texas, and on a per capita basis killed 35,000 people, or the population of the University of Texas, and on the way back took the freshman class at SMU hostage and hid them under tunnels, what would we do? It'd be the great Sonora radioactive parking lot. But Jews are not allowed, and Israel is not allowed to prosecute a war. And they are prosecuting a war more humanely than we have done. The ratio of combatants to civilians is, of civilian death to combatant mortality is lower than it was in Mosul, lower than it was in Japan, lower than it was in Germany. So there's just a different standard for Jews in Israel when it comes to prosecuting a war.
And that's so true. And that is just the beginning of the backlash, because many Jews in America that once thought they were at home with the Democrat Party and progressive politics are learning the brutal truth. They are no longer welcome, and I doubt they ever really were. They were just politically convenient and easy to keep around. Not anymore. Because now the Democrats and the left are pledging their allegiance to the people supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terrorist organizations, leaving some lifelong Democrats and Jews with ice in their veins. Among those, Alan Dershowitz, a lifelong Jewish member of the Democrat Party, says he is no longer loyal to that party. How could he be? Listen.
From President Biden, he made a very disappointing statement. In the same breath, he talked about the demonstrators in passing, and he said, but you have to understand the Palestinian situation. No, you don't have to understand the Palestinian situation when people are calling for rape and murder and beheading. No, the Democrats are an extraordinary disappointment, and I'm coming very, very close to that red line. I am no longer presumptively voting for Democrats. I'm going to vote for whoever is the best candidate. That may include Democrats, but I have no loyalty anymore to the party that is the cause, a major cause of what's going on at Columbia today. Another major cause is this DEI program. Bureaucracies now cost billions of dollars on college campuses, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are the breeding grounds for anti-Semitism, along with intersectionality, which says, you know, Jews are the oppressors and Muslims are the oppressed.
Well, for Democrats that have encouraged the invasion of the southern border and are now dealing with that crisis, too, they must wonder, who did we let in? Is that part of the fuel of the anti-Semitic fire that we're seeing on college campuses? And the other question, a very big question, is who is footing the bill for all of these people? You see, it's all very curious how well organized and how well funded it all appears. I mean, most college kids can't organize their class schedule a week in advance, but in this case, they can build an occupation not just on one campus, but all over the nation. And each day, more kids on more campuses are either joining or trying to join the side of the terrorist killers. And strangely enough, much of their gear looks the same. Something not lost on New York's Mayor Eric Adams. He says there are people organizing the anger and the violence at Columbia and elsewhere. No kidding, Mr. Mayor. Way to clue in. Here he is.
We strongly believe that is the case right now, that there are people who are here, they latch on to any protest. To see our police officers having bottles thrown at them, chairs, people who peacefully protest for an issue, they're not throwing bottles and chairs. And so we know that we have acknowledged and saw across the country, there are people who come, have nothing to do with the issue, and they want to aggravate. What I believe is a number of people who are really trying to use this to cause violence in our city. And we're going to seek them out, and we're going to identify them. And I think Commissioner Daughtry made a good point. When I saw one of the interviews he did, why is everybody's tent the same? Was there a fire sale on those tents? There's some organizing going on. You know, there's a concerted organizing effort. And what's the goal of that organizing? That's what we need to be asking ourselves.
I think it's pretty clear what the goal is. Create division, instability, anger, and eventually violence in the streets that begins on the campuses and spreads across the cities. These kids are all being brought together by some outside force. I agree, Mr. Mayor. Way to clue in. Then about all those tents that look the same. Yeah, I saw that with the tent cities built in Chicago recently to house the illegals that have invaded the Windy City. The tents and the setup is all the same, block after block, and that means two things. Number one, it's organized. That's right, it's organized. And number two, it's paid for by somebody or some organization. They're doing all of this. And after the tents are set up and the occupation begins, then the fuse for something much bigger is lit. There is no God but Allah, and martyr is beloved by Allah. That is the chant by far too many on the campus of Columbia. This is a precursor for the violence that is coming during this upcoming summer of hate across America. It's simply true. Listen to these people. They live here, they want everything, and scream death to America. You know this doesn't end well. There's just no way this doesn't end without violence, with bloodshed in universities and cities in flames from rioting. It's coming. Colombia yesterday, instead of dealing with its own self-inflicted crisis by taking control of the uprising, instead told the students they'd be conducting the rest of the year remotely. Yeah, you're going to be on Zoom. That $70,000 annual education will be coming through your computer screen. Oh, and then they said, by the way, they have 48 hours to negotiate with these kids. Negotiate. With anti-Semitic, racist students taking over your college. Negotiate, they say. And some of the kids enrolled there think, well, it might be the best option to stay home with everything that's going on. How sad is that? They want to negotiate with these terrorists in training. And for Jewish students, Colombia has become too dangerous to remain on campus. They knew it before these actions were taken. Here's a couple of them.
Emerging online, and another showing a young woman holding a sign pointing in the direction of Jewish students saying Al-Qassam's next targets, Hamas's military wing. Students Andrew Stein and Alicia Baker say they don't feel safe.
It was the most terrified I'd probably been in my entire life.
On Saturday night, Stein says he was on campus for a pro-Israel counter-protest when this happened. You see him in the white sweatshirt filming as a group of pro-Palestinian protesters yell expletives against Israel.
They started saying in Arabic, Hamas, Hamas, our beloved, please bomb Tel Aviv. And then they started saying, we're coming for you. No Zionists on this campus, like get off campus.
Stein alleges the situation escalated.
Me and my friend had water poured, like physically poured in our face. My friend was actually abused in the middle of campus.
Well, it just makes you think, doesn't it? Maybe we're being set up for something bigger. And it makes you think, well, maybe Congress will do something. Maybe the governor of New York will finally step in and put an end to this. But instead, some high-profile politicians get out the gas can and throw flames on the fire of hatred. Bernie Sanders, a longtime anti-Semitic, is among those fueling the flames of hate and violence against Jews, while claiming he's not. You decide. Listen.
Mr. President, Hamas started this war, and that is true. But this war stopped being about defending Israel a long time ago. What is going on now is the destruction of the very fabric of Palestinian life. It is impossible to look at these facts and not conclude that the Israeli government's policy has been, quite deliberately, to make Gaza uninhabitable for Palestinians. And clearly, there are powerful voices in Israel's extreme right-wing government who have been quite open about their desire to drive the Palestinian people out of both Gaza and the West Bank.
But despite what they try to tell you, despite the propaganda arm here, Bernie is not a guy in the majority. Neither are the hate mongers and Jew haters at Columbia or anywhere else. And I can tell you, this is not good politically for Joe Biden or the Democrats. They've already lost the Jewish vote in November across this country. It's going to get a lot worse because some people can see this for exactly what it is, division and hate. And the real path to redemption runs over terrorists, not through them. Mark my words.